Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com. Sorry I was laughing. I had the Ustream window open and I had it muted, and then all of a sudden this ad started playing with this kid screaming, and I was like, I thought I muted you, but apparently ads can override the mute option, which is, I don't know, seems like a little bit too much power for me. But anyway, let's get on with the show. If this is your first time watching, I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com. I'm the teen lifestyle editor. I review phones. And this is Phone Dog's live podcast that we have every Friday here on Ustream. And we also stream it to our Facebook page as well as our website. I don't know if you could hear that airplane flying over just now. You can also watch this, on PhoneDog.com. So if you're watching this on Ustream, thanks for coming. We have a couple of moderators set, so hopefully they can handle the madness. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can, which is the recording after the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you also for watching. Be sure and check out the timeline or the description below the video because it has a timeline of the topics that we discussed, so you don't have to watch the entire thing. You can just, kind of go back and forth. And also feel free to leave your comments on YouTube. I always check those and I respond to the ones that I can. But mostly on Ustream, that's where most of the conversation takes place. So you guys feel free to leave your comments as we discuss each topic. We do have some big stuff to talk about. Of course, the main topic is the Amazon Kindle Fire tablet. Amazon also released updates to their Kindle e-book e-readers, but for our purposes, we're going to discuss the Android tablet that they released, and then some more updates on Apple versus Samsung. And is everything okay with the feed? I'm seeing a couple of comments on Ustream. Let me know if everything is okay or if I need to fix anything. But anyway, so then we're going to move on to some topics of Apple versus Samsung, more updates on that lawsuit, and then so on and so forth, and you'll find out what else we're going to talk about as we get to it. So to start off with the Amazon Kindle Fire, which is Amazon's tablet. Now, the interesting thing about it is that it runs Android, but you would really never know it by looking at it because Amazon has basically skinned it so heavily that it doesn't really look like Android at all. It has some of the same features, once you go deeper into the tablet itself. But if you take a look, I'll show you guys this picture of the Kindle Fire. So, you can see this is a home screen, so basically it looks nothing like Android, totally different. But one thing is that the notification bar up at the top there, that still does function similar to the notification bar on, any, Android device. Now, I'm not entirely sure if you get emails, if it will show up in that notification bar. In the demos that Amazon was doing, they didn't really show that functionality, so I'm not sure if that still works. But it does actually have an email client. So, the interesting thing people are talking about with this tablet is, could this actually be the tablet that can compete with the iPad? And I know that we say that about every single tablet, and it's getting very redundant. And honestly, there hasn't been a tablet that really competed with the iPad, at least not in terms of sales. I mean, the Galaxy Tab is probably the one that comes the closest, but I mean, if you compare the numbers, iPad dominates the market easily. So, we say this about several tablets that come out, but no, neither tablet, or there's been no tablet so far that has really been able to compete with the iPad. And one thing that I've always said, well, I don't know if I've always said it, but in the past couple of months, one thing that I've been saying is that in order for an Android tablet or just any tablet to compete with the iPad, it's got to be all about the price because, the average consumer doesn't understand a lot of, the specs, dual core processors. They may understand 4G, but, the operating system, which one is better. A lot of the technical details, the average consumer doesn't really understand, or maybe, doesn't care. They see most of the people that have a tablet, it's an Apple iPad. So when they go to the store, they see, okay, Apple iPad, everybody has this, Galaxy Tab or Asus Transformer. Nobody has this. So, and they're the same exact price. So, which one should I get? And the average person is going to go with the iPad. And so, and a lot of people agree with me that in order for Android tablets to compete, they have to be cheaper than the iPad. And the problem is that it's not that easy. There's a reason why they charge a certain amount for a tablet, because it costs that much to make it, and so they have to make a profit somehow. So it's not as easy as it sounds, but Amazon has found a way to really drop the price so low that you're just like, whoa. I was reading an editorial by, can't remember who wrote it, maybe Joanna Stern from The Verge, or thisismynext.com, and she said, no, it wasn't her, it was, anyway, I've read so many editorials, they're all just kind of like jumbled around in my mind. But that $199 price tag, it's on the verge of an impulse buy. You would almost be willing to buy a $200 tablet that's made by a large manufacturer just because, whoa, it's so cheap. That's why they sell, hundreds and thousands of Kindles, because they're like $100 and, they're so cheap. It's like, well, I'm not really missing anything. So the $199 price tag, to me, I think is basically it. And not only that, but, and obviously if you can't tell, this is me giving my opinion on it. A lot of people have different opinions on it, and I've heard several. But, my opinion is that, yes, it can compete because, one, the price, but also because of what it does. And I tweeted about this whenever the tablet was first announced, and, we got some hands-on videos, kind of see, basically the direction that Amazon was going to go with this tablet. And one thing that I thought really set it apart from other tablets is that it's a media device. It's meant for media consumption. And to me, that's all I want a tablet to be. In fact, I would go so far as to say that's what everybody wants a tablet for, is for media consumption. Now, Apple can go on and on about iWork on the iPad and how, you can use numbers and pages and their Office suite, and it works so well even on the iPad. And Samsung can go on about their, Office suite, and Asus, they can add, any kind of productivity apps that they want to. But the bottom line is that I think people are starting to realize, or maybe, realize from the beginning that tablets are just, these fun, portable, big smartphones that you can do a lot of really fun stuff on, and that's awesome. And it's just cool. It's just a cool piece of technology to have. It's one of those things that you see in futuristic movies, and you're like, wow, that's so cool. I wish we had that. I don't know if I would use it for anything that meant anything in the world, but it would still be fun to have, and that's what a tablet is. But up until now, no one's wanted to admit that. Like I said, Apple, they go on about iWork on the tablet, and Samsung, they try to mask the multimedia features with all these productivity apps, almost like they're ashamed or like they're too afraid to admit that, yes, you can just use this to have fun. And to me, I really appreciate that Amazon, they embrace that. They say, yes, this tablet is for web browsing, it's for apps, it's for games, it's for reading books. And that's pretty much it. Yes, it has an email client. And yes, you can do whatever you want with the apps that you download from the Amazon app market. It has all of those things, but what they're really pushing and what they're really embracing are the multimedia features of the tablet. And I think that is crucial, because then it's like, oh, it's for fun, but who wants to pay $500, half of $1,000? Who wants to pay that much money for a device that's just fun? But when you're like, oh, it's only $200 and I can just have fun with it, and it's portable, and it's Amazon and all their features, then you're like, wow, this is, it's not bad. And, it's one of those things that you don't even think about. You don't care, like, is it a tablet? What does it do? What's it for? Is it better than the iPad? You don't even think about it. You're like, oh, $200 and it's fun. It's a cool piece of technology. Let's buy it. So I think Amazon is really onto something here. And also, Amazon is probably one of the few companies that can really pull this off because they have the ecosystem for it. I mean, they have movies, Instant Watch. I use Amazon Instant Watch all the time. I use Netflix and Vudu as well, but I use Amazon Instant Watch all the time. They have that. They have, obviously they have books, digital downloads. They have their own app market. So they have the ecosystem already in place. They don't have to build it. They don't have to try to sell it. They don't have to try to tell people, it's okay, we have an ecosystem. They don't have to do that. They already have it. People already believe in their ecosystem. They're already, they've already put their money into their ecosystem. So, Amazon was really just in the right place at the right time. And then they had, I don't know, the guts or just enough of a mind to put it together in just a really fun package and sell it for an amazing price. And, people, they talk about how Amazon is going to lose, I think $50 on every Kindle Fire that's sold, which may be true. And maybe that's one of the sacrifices that Amazon realized they would have to make. In order to sell tablets, we're going to have to sell them for dirt cheap. We may lose a little bit of money, but we're willing to make that sacrifice because people are buying into our ecosystem. So they're going to buy apps from us. It's not like, every other Android tablet, the Galaxy Tab, anytime somebody buys an app, that's from the Android market. Samsung, it's not Samsung's market. So Amazon has their market. Every app you buy, Amazon makes money off of that app. They have books. They're going to make money basically off of everything you do with this tablet, which is really genius. So because they have that ecosystem, for one, it makes it a lot easier to sell. And two, it makes it a lot easier to make money off of because it's so solid and it's so set in place. So that's my take on the Amazon Kindle Fire. Do I want one? Yes, I do want one because, again, I go back to, for me, it's the price. It's like, oh, okay, well, $200, that's not so bad. When it was $500 or $600 or $800, if you can remember the Zoom, freaking idiots, $800, $500, you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, then you're kind of talking about, then you're going into your budget. Then you're like, okay, I have a certain budget, a certain amount allotted for products like this. Is this practical? Will I use it, for certain things? Will it make my life easier? Then you're like, okay, does it fit into my budget? When it's only $200, you're like, well, who cares? It's so cheap. Depending on your lot in life, obviously I understand that maybe it may be a little too much for people. And of course, in America, we're so spoiled with everything that we have. But yeah, I think the price is really what sells it. Now, back on the Android aspects of the tablet. So a lot of people are comparing this tablet to the Nook Color. And, and again, I tweeted about this because people were, whenever I was commenting about the Kindle Fire, I was like, it's so cool because of this, and it's great, Amazon was smart with this and this, and people were like, yeah, you mean the rebranded Nook Color? And they were saying it as if it was an insult, and I'm just like, yeah, so it's a Nook Color, what's your point? It's still a good tablet, but it's actually better because Barnes & Noble's ecosystem isn't, as founded as Amazon's is. But anyway, so it does run Android. It's Android 2.3, which is much better than other reports that we had heard. We heard, and I had to go back in my notes to look at this, but we originally heard that the Kindle Fire would ship with a version of Android prior to 2.1. And I thought, and I was surprised when I saw that because I originally thought that it was going to be like version 2.2 or 2.1, but it was actually, the original rumor was it was going to be 2.1 or even a previous version. So getting bumped up to 2.3 is a big deal. There's other logistics to consider, like, is this going to be upgraded to Honeycomb or, 2.4 whenever it comes out? Honestly, I'm not sure. I have a feeling that Amazon probably isn't going to update it just because they don't have to. Most people won't even know that this is an Android tablet. I mean, most people that buy it, they won't even know it's Android because there's no mention of Android anywhere. I mean, it's Amazon's app store, it's Amazon's tablet. There's no mention of Android anywhere. So, say 75% of the people, they won't even know that it should get another version of Android. So, I'm inclined to think that Amazon won't update it, but personally, I don't count that as a negative because, I don't really think it needs an update just because, a lot of the functionality and a lot of the changes that, updated versions of Android bring will not make any difference to the Kindle Fire. So that's a gut feeling. I mean, don't quote me on that. I have no idea. But anyway, so Android 2.3, Amazon's App Store only. Now, can you hack this thing and personally put Honeycomb on it or, side load other apps like from the Android market? We're not really sure. A lot of people are thinking that it's going to be locked down a lot to where it's virtually impossible to do any of that. And not because Amazon is evil, but I think one person brought out that just because of the privacy issues, if this thing were easily hackable, they have to look at it from not just, oh, I want to hack my tablet and, put Honeycomb on it, but they have to look at it from a security issue of they're selling books and movies and apps on this device. And so if you can easily hack into it, that could be a security issue for their customers. So the consensus is that they're probably not going to leave it just open to, whatever people can do. But anyway, that's, if you want a quick recap, if you haven't read anything about it, a quick recap of the specs: 7-inch display, 1024 by 600, 1 gigahertz, TI OMAP 4 dual-core processor. So I was actually kind of surprised when I heard that it had a dual-core processor. I was thinking, multimedia device, 7-inch display, $200. Single core is what I was guessing. But it's actually a dual-core processor. Wi-Fi only. There will not be a data version, a 3G version, as far as we know. Amazon hasn't said anything about there being one. So Wi-Fi only. 8 gigs of internal storage. And then here's the other part where Amazon really has a leg up on the competition. I've always wondered where a leg up on. Anyway, is their cloud services. Amazon, it's basically the perfect storm for Amazon. It's not a storm for Amazon. It's more like a, happy rainbow. But, perfect storm because they have the ecosystem plus cloud service. So there's only 8 gigs of internal storage, and no, there's not an SD card slot, boo-hoo, but there's the cloud, and so virtually limitless in terms of how much you can store up in the cloud. So that's, again, another feature, another plus. Along with this, Amazon also introduced their own web browser. It's kind of an interesting take on a web browser. It's called Silk. And it's basically a split web browser, meaning that half of the work is being done on the tablet, and then the other half is being done in the cloud. Amazon's calling it the elastic computing cloud. So it means that everything's going to be going a lot faster because, it's that same problem you have whenever you connect your smartphone to a Wi-Fi network, and you're like, okay, this Wi-Fi network gets 10 megs down or 30 megs down, but whenever you're actually loading a page on your smartphone, it's like a lot slower than it is on your PC just because of, the hardware of your smartphone and what it's meant for and what it just can't do. And so whenever you add the tablet plus the cloud, this whole big other thing that's processing information, it makes it a lot faster. And so the web browser is, according to Amazon, much faster. And then the demos, it looked a lot faster. So, that's their browser. The Amazon Kindle Fire, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be great. Will it kill the iPad? I mean, I don't think any tablet is going to kill the iPad. I don't think a tablet has to kill the iPad. But I think it'll be successful. Price, Amazon's ecosystem, and what they're marketing it. I think it's genius to just say, you know what, this tablet is for fun. There, we said it. To me, it's what every tablet should be. And it's, all the other tablet makers are just trying to hide that. So, I think it's going to be great. I don't know if I'm going to get one, but I'm excited for its release. It's coming November 15th, $199. You can pre-order it now if you want to. So, okay, moving on to A more not so lighthearted discussion: Amazon versus Apple versus Samsung. You guys know all about this. Apple sued Samsung because the look of the Galaxy Tab and the Galaxy S phones were too similar to the iPad and the iPhone. We've talked about this before, but now we have a little more insight into Apple's thinking, and it's ridiculous. If you guys watch the broadcast, the podcast in the past, I try to be balanced, even though I mentioned this last week, even though I don't agree with any of Apple's business dealings, I try to be, balanced and say, okay, maybe Apple has a right to sue, and, Samsung, they're right to. I try to be balanced, but these new reports from the court hearings and what Apple has said, it's like they're just whining. So Apple said, this is the quote from the court proceedings, from the court hearings. They said, speaking of the Galaxy Tab, this is going to be launched on the market with the velocity of a fire hose, and the Galaxy Tab 10.1 is going to just come in and take away iPad 2 sales so quickly that by the time we get to final hearing, the full impact of the patent infringement will be felt to the detriment of Apple and to the benefit of Samsung. So Apple thinks that customers will be seduced away from Apple's iOS platform, and that they'll all of a sudden become Android people. And so basically Apple is saying that, this Galaxy Tab, I don't know what they're like, because it's such a good tablet or because it's so much like iOS, I'm not sure, why, but they said this Galaxy Tab is just going to come in and it's going to steal all of our customers, and we don't like that. And I'm just like, so wait a minute. So you're upset because somebody made a tablet that was so good it's going to steal customers from you, and you don't like that, so you're going to sue them. And it's just, I don't know, to me that was just like, whoa. No way. There's no reason to sue somebody. There's competition all the time. And back when, Android devices have been made for years, and you never said anything about it. But now that they're actually gaining some ground, they're actually gaining traction, they're actually cutting into your market share, now you're whining about it, and so you're going to go sue somebody. And of course, this was a theory that a lot of people had. As a journalist, or I don't know, journalist, as a writer, journalist maybe, I don't want to put myself up that high, but anyway, I was like, okay, so Apple is suing Samsung because the two devices look very similar. And people had all these reasons. Oh, Apple is just scared because Android is starting to cut into their sales, or, Apple, they're just starting to, get worried now. And I was like, okay, I don't know if that's actually true. I'm just going to take it as the lawsuit is Samsung infringing on their patents, and I was ignoring all the other theories. But now Apple has basically confirmed, they've said, we're suing because this tablet is going to take away our customers. And you're just like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you have, did you think that you were going to be the only tablet maker? Did you think the iPad was going to be the only tablet on the market? And so I've lost a lot of sympathy for Apple. I try to be balanced. I try to look at it from their point of view. I try to just say, okay, maybe they have the right to sue Samsung. But now they're just whining, and it's really annoying. Apple's lawyer went on to say they'll then be Android people, and the investment in the apps that they make to purchase on their Galaxy Tab will be something they can't use on an Apple product. So, Apple has their ecosystem with iTunes and the App Store, and, Android has its ecosystem, and Apple is mad that Android has its own ecosystem. And they're like, well, if they get their tablet, then they have to buy into their ecosystem, and then they're trapped, and that's wrong. And you're like, yeah, that's what we've been telling you for like 10 years now. This is a complaint that people have had against Apple for so long. And Apple was like, yeah, but no, that's not bad. But now they're like, oh, hey, that's not fair. You can't trap people with your ecosystem. That's not fair. Nuh-uh. So anyway, yeah, I lost a lot of sympathy for Apple. Now it's just ridiculous. Samsung, we just heard today that Samsung has offered Apple a deal. We don't know. This is taking place in Australia, by the way. Everything that I've mentioned, this is taking place in Australia. We don't know the details of this deal, but Samsung has offered it to Apple. We'll see if they agree. There's an editorial that was written by somebody, Taylor or Evan, on phonedog.com. I really should write this down. But anyway, the question posed in this article is, has Apple bitten off more than they can chew? And it's kind of like, basically what I was getting into is like, okay, Apple, you had a case, but now we're getting down to the real reason why you're suing. So people are losing sympathy for you. You've faked evidence, and now Verizon is coming out and saying, you know what, please do not grant this ban on the Galaxy Tab because we don't think it would be good for our sales. So now the carriers are starting to realize, wow, if they ban the Galaxy Tab, that's going to be bad for us. We're going to lose money. So, of course, they're going to side with Samsung. Verizon has already come out in a statement and sided with Samsung. T-Mobile also came out with this statement and sided with Samsung. Sprint hasn't, obviously, because they're probably getting the iPhone, and neither has AT&T, obviously, because they have the iPhone, and they don't really have anything else. So, well, I mean, they do, but compared to Verizon and T-Mobile's lineup, it's not much. So, it's only a matter of time before companies start realizing, you know what, it's not worth it. We're going to lose money if Apple keeps doing this. And yeah, maybe T-Mobile does want to get the iPhone, but for the time being, they have to be worried about making money. And they're going to be losing money if Apple succeeds. So how far will this go? I mean, will it come to a point where Apple is they've dug themselves in so deep of a hole that they can't get out of it? That's the question. T-Mobile said they filed let me get the name right. Amicus Curiae brief. Now, this is not necessarily saying that there should never be a ban on the Galaxy Tab and they don't think that Apple had the right to sue. They're not getting into that. They're just saying, could you please not do it right now because the holiday season is coming up. And so T-Mobile says the timing of such an injunction on two popular consumer products that will help anchor its 2011 holiday sales would unnecessarily harm T-Mobile and thousands of U.S. consumers. At this late date, T-Mobile could not find comparable replacement products for the 2011 holiday season, and Verizon said basically the same thing. So, that I think is a big deal. For T-Mobile to side with Samsung, yeah, they have no ties to Apple. But for Verizon to side with Samsung is a big deal. And, then more and more is coming out about Apple faking evidence. And then this whole thing, again, Apple just whining. And I'm really tired of it. So I hope the courts can see past all of this, fussy britches that they're putting up, because it's just annoying. Yeah, I said fussy britches, okay. The HTC rhyme just made a noise. I wonder what that was. By the way, I got the HTC rhyme today, and it just gave me a notification. So I might talk about this later. I don't know. It's the woman phone that's not really for women. I don't know. Anyway, so that's that. We'll move on to something else. But yeah, Apple, screw you. Samsung and Google are teaming up for October 11th Unpacked event. Ice cream sandwich may be on the menu. We actually got We got a leaked video, and I have a picture, too, of what ice cream sandwich could look like. The video is on Engadget, and whenever I post the show notes for the podcast on phonedog.com, I'll have a link to the Engadget article where you can watch the video. But here's a quick picture, and you can see it looks a lot like honeycomb. If you look on the left there, the app drawer, very similar to honeycomb, and the overall color scheme you can see is very similar to honeycomb. The notification bar again looks similar to honeycomb, and then in the video the person shows the multitasking menu, which again is basically identical to honeycomb. So ice cream sandwich, not a whole lot of surprises. Just imagine honeycomb on a phone, and that's what ice cream sandwich is. So this we just got the invitation to this Samsung event. I'll show you guys the invitation, even though it's not much, but Samsung or I can't even read that because on my screen it's so small. But anyway, this is the event. Now, the fact that it's, Google, it mentions Android, it's being broadcast on Google's Android YouTube channel, is telling us that we are going to see ice cream sandwich. And then the fact that it's Samsung also kind of gives away that the ice cream sandwich Nexus device is going to be made by Samsung, which is basically what we already knew. So that is October 11th, and Aaron will be there to cover that. And so we'll have a live stream for you guys. I'm sure he'll do that, or on Twitter. You can follow that. I'm excited about ice cream sandwich. I think it's good on Google's part to try to make Android a little prettier. Personally, they're not going the direction that I like, but it's all subjective. It's just visual. It just depends on what you like. I think it's admirable that they're actually the impressions that I get from ice cream sandwich and from honeycomb is very robotic. Very machine type. The cold colors, teal, it's a cold color. It's like the coldest color. Blue is the color of cold. So, the teal and the black, very machine and robotic, which, it's Android, so it makes perfect sense. So I think it was smart. At least it makes sense for Google to do that. Personally, I don't really like it. I think for me it's a little too depressing. But, I think it's great that Google is really putting forth a concerted effort to improve the visual look of Android. I've said in the past, and a lot of other people have said this too, and people are starting to say it more and more, that that Android in a lot of ways looks like a beta operating system. And, we get anybody that says that, they kind of get, I don't want to say attacked, but, Android... That was my other phone sending me the same notification. I have so many phones right now that it's just... Anyway, and people that are fans of Android, they're kind of stick up for it and say, it doesn't look beta, you can download a launcher and make it beautiful. But I think if you step away from Android and use something else and you go back to it, you're like, wow, it does kind of look beta. So I think it's great that Google is really, putting forth a concerted effort to improve the visual aspects of Android. And I'm excited for it. I think Google's plan of one operating system everywhere is excellent and should really cut down on fragmentation, because it was bad enough that we had fragmentation with phones, and then when honeycomb came out, okay, now we're going to have fragmentation with tablets, and then just beyond that we have fragmentation with tablet and phone versions put together, and it's just like so much fragmentation. You're just like, oh my gosh. So the fact that Google is doing that, I think is really awesome. So I'm excited about it, and like I said, Aaron will be there to cover everything. Let's move on to Mango. Windows Phone, the Mango update has began rolling out. I haven't gotten my Mango update just yet, but I'm really excited about it, and you can see plenty of coverage on the features that Mango brings. Multitasking is probably the biggest one. Twitter integration throughout the OS is another big one, and then some improvements in just the way that you use the phone. And this is one feature that I really like that Microsoft added, or that really came up with, is that so you have apps. You have an IMDb app or a Flickster app, or you have apps for restaurant reviews, or apps for whatever. You have apps, but sometimes jumping back and forth between this app and that app, it's I never thought of it as like being a problem, and it's not really. But if you could have a better system, then hey, why not? So their system is, okay, say you do a search for a movie. Go to Bing, search for the movie. It'll show you the show times right there. You don't have to open an app. It'll just show you the show times. you can select those show times and it'll open up a card about that movie. You can flip through and see a synopsis, ratings. And then Local Scout, which is a new feature in Mango, that comes into play. Local Scout will tell you restaurants in the area, shopping malls in the area. And then App Connect comes into play, and it'll say, okay, hey, you're looking at this movie. You have apps that are related to this search. Would you like to go to them? And you're like, oh, sure. So you go to the app, and it's all very fluid and seamless, and I like the way that Microsoft really integrated that. I'm excited to see if it actually is practical. Will I actually use it? For me, the things that I'm most excited about are Twitter integration and multitasking. I think that's a no-brainer. So that started rolling out, and really nice and seamless. And we had another article on this on Phone Dog. Could Google learn something from Windows Phone updates? And again, going back to fragmentation, it's a big problem with Android. And, what causes it is that Google doesn't really have any control over the manufacturers and what they do. They can prepare a new version and they can tell them how good it is and they can tell them to send it to their phone. They can do all they want. But the bottom line is that manufacturer can say, yeah, I don't think we're going to do that right now. Or the carrier can say, yeah, we're not going to send that to our phones right now. And then, you're stuck. You're waiting a year or more for an update. I mean, 2.3 came out a year ago, and there are still phones shipping with 2.2. I mean, there's phones that have been out for a year that still don't have 2.3, and there's phones shipping with 2.2. It's completely unacceptable. And so the question is, Microsoft, you can say whatever you want about Windows Phone, which, again, is purely opinion. But one thing that they have gotten right is their updates. And I think that's it's one of the reasons why I switched to Windows Phone, because it's just so much less to worry about. And, the downside is that, yeah, there's only like one update per year. So I don't get a new update every month. But I mean, if I were on Android, I wouldn't get that new update every month anyway. Even if Google came out with an update every month, you're not going to get it for like another year. So that's a good article. You can check that out and kind of talk about, basically why doesn't Google do this? Google should do this. And can they do this? So that's a good article. If you have a Windows Phone device, I hope you're enjoying the Mango. If you have it yet, it's not. The rollout isn't complete, obviously. So if you're still waiting for it, then it's all right. More on Windows Phone. T-Mobile announced the HTC Radar, which we saw a couple weeks ago. I won't talk about it too much because we've already covered it. But it is one of the new Mango devices that was announced. As far as we heard, it was just coming to European carriers, but T-Mobile has announced now that it will be coming to T-Mobile in time for the holidays. Now, let's switch gears a little bit and go back to Apple. Apple was they just love being in the news, because the day that Mango is announced, Apple sends out the invites for the iPhone event. So Mango kind of took a back seat, but not too much. So it was kind of facetious for Apple to do that. But anyway, they sent out their their invitation for the Apple event. Here it is. And obviously, there's going to be a new iPhone. You can tell it says "Let's Talk Apple." It has the phone icon. So we know that we're going to see a new iPhone. The question is, how many iPhones are we going to see? And there was an analysis article on CNET.com, and Josh, the writer, brought out an interesting point, or an interesting idea, an interesting theory. He said that this number 1 on the phone icon could be a clue that there's only going to be one iPhone. And I was like, the sad thing is that that's probably true, because Apple is just like that. So, of course, we don't know if it actually is true, but it's an interesting theory. I mean, you think about, why did they add the number 1? I mean, none of the other icons have any notifications. I mean, why would they put that number there? So, I don't know. I mean, it could mean that we're only going to see one iPhone. Who knows? But that is, when is that? October 4th, which was the rumor date, so nothing new there. It will kick off at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Aaron will be covering it. Now, there's a rumor that so taking a step back from that theory of only one iPhone being announced, we're going to continue on with the theory of if there are two iPhones being announced. The model iPhone 4S showed up in Apple's inventory system. So, I don't know, maybe we will see two phones. But more interestingly, there is a report from China Unicom that the iPhone 5 will be an HSPA Plus device capable of 21 megabits per second download speeds. And what happened was the deputy director of China Unicom, Huang Wenlian, was making a presentation at Macworld Asia, and he showed this slide. And you may not be able to read everything, but on the far right is where it mentions the iPhone 5, and that little arrow points to where it's listed as being capable of 21 megabits per second HSPA plus. So, I think everyone's kind of accepted that the iPhone 5 will not be a 4G device. Apple has made that pretty clear. So we've all kind of just accepted that it's not going to be a 4G device. And we've heard rumors saying that it will be, and we're like, yeah, but it's probably not. But this one, I don't know, to me it seems a little like it has a little more credibility. Why would they say that? I mean, this is China Unicom's deputy director. It's at Macworld Asia. Why would he say that? If they didn't know, or if it wasn't, but if they didn't know, why would they assume? So I don't know. I mean, maybe it will be a 4G device, and I'm gonna say this, and a lot of other people have said this too. If it's not a 4G device, I think it will be bad. I'm how do I put this? I theorize that the iPhone will start to slide in sales numbers if it's not a 4G device. That's my theory. I may be wrong, but I think it's in Apple's best interest to make it a 4G device. But here's the interesting thing. Qualcomm's chip found in the Verizon CDMA iPhone 4 already supports 14.4 megabits per second HSPA plus, but the device itself is limited to CDMA. So that's interesting. The chip in the iPhone 4 is already capable of HSPA plus. So even if they use that same chip, which they're not, they're going to use a dual core chip. But, say it's, same technology, it could support HSPA plus. For some reason, Apple chose to not use that feature. But the fact is that it's possible. They could have. So I don't know. Maybe the iPhone 5 will be a 4G device. I think if the iPhone 5 is a 4G device, it's like game over for every other Android device that's released, because that'll just be like the most, Apple fans will love that. People will buy it. If it, on the other end of the spectrum, if it's not a 4G device, like I said, I think the sales are going to start sliding. So a lot hinges on that feature, because it's basically the only thing that the iPhone doesn't have. I mean, it's going to get a dual core processor. We already know that. A larger display is just purely subjective. Some people want it, some people don't. So it's not, to me, I don't think it's going to determine really if they sell a lot. It already has the Retina display. It was one of the first ones. So, high-res display done. Great camera. So it already has the features to compete with the Android devices. But what the other Android devices have is 4G. And I think that it's really going to hinge on that feature. So will it be a 4G device? I don't know. I mean, up until now, I was saying no, definitely not, no way. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it will. Maybe we're wrong. Really quickly, it's 4:44, so I want to get on to the open Q&A. But we do have some new device releases. The LG Esteem for MetroPCS. This is basically the LG Revolution that came out a while back. It's now coming to MetroPCS. It's a 4G device, which is awesome. I tested out the Galaxy Indulge, which was also a 4G device on MetroPCS, and the 4G speeds were amazing. So I'm happy for you, MetroPCS customers. I've been asked a lot if we're going to get a demo unit of this phone. We haven't gotten one yet. Aaron has requested one from the PR company, but we haven't gotten one yet. So I don't know. We're trying to get one, but I don't know if we're going to get one. Obviously, as soon as I get it, I'll let you guys know, and I'll do an unboxing. In the meantime, you can check out our review of the LG Revolution, since it's basically the same phone. The HTC Amaze 4G and the Samsung Galaxy S2 were announced for T-Mobile. Here's a quick picture of them. And so obviously the Amaze is on the left, the Galaxy S2 is on the right. You guys already know all about the Galaxy S2, but the Amaze there, it has a 4.3-inch QHD display, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S3 processor, NFC support, an 8-megapixel camera that's capable of capturing 1080p HD video, a front-facing camera. It's the same camera actually as the MyTouch 4G Slide, so all of those advanced features you'll also get with the HTC Amaze, and it ships with Android 2.3 with Sense 3.5. So one of the questions that I've been asked a lot lately, and I'm sure you guys are probably about to ask me this in the open Q&A, which phone should I get, the Galaxy S2 or the HTC Amaze? And honestly, they're both like exactly the same. It really just depends on, do you want HTC Sense or do you want Samsung's TouchWiz? Because, you know, look at the specs. 4.3-inch display on the Amaze, 4.5-inch display on the Galaxy S2, not that big of a difference. Both have a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S3. It's the same exact processor in both phones, so no difference there. Both have NFC support. Both have an 8-megapixel camera that can capture 1080p HD video. Now, obviously, you know, the HTC Amaze uses HTC's camera. Samsung uses, you know, Samsung's camera. So perhaps different quality there, but you can, you know, compare which one you prefer. And then both ship with with Android 2.3 and then the latest version of their respective UIs. So, and they're both 4G devices. So they're both 4G devices and they're both capable of 42 megabits per second HSPA plus. So you see what I'm saying? They're both basically the same exact device. The only difference, and I mean like the only difference, is HTC Sense and Samsung TouchWiz. It's all up to you. TouchWiz is my favorite UI, but I mean, you know, everybody's different. So I just wanted to show that to you guys, and let's move on to the open Q&A. It is 4:45. I'm on Ustream, and I will be reading your comments. I'll also be on Facebook. Also, if you're on YouTube, leave your comments, and I'll be reading those. I might not be able to answer all of them, but you know, I'll try to read them. Bear with me for a minute because I'm going to load a page and there may be some sound for a second. Okay, pause. Good. Okay. So I'm on Ustream. Any questions? Ask away. I have no questions for this week. Okay. Razr was a flip phone. Okay. White socks. I want what? Sorry. That was what I was referring to earlier when there may be some sound. Again, I thought I had muted it. Okay, it's good that Motorola are getting back into the phone game, even with their awful UIs. They relied on the V3 design for too long while the iPhone, etc. took over. Make yo wallpaper awesome sauce, literally. Okay. Sydney, would you suggest I get the Galaxy Player 5 or iPod Touch 5G? And hopefully you don't get fired. Yeah, that we were just joking. You know, honestly, with everything that happened this week, I haven't had a whole lot of time to really do a lot of research on the Galaxy Player 5. I only know some basic things about it, but I don't have an opinion on it yet. Everything else was so crazy. So I can't tell you right now. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. I don't know. Sydney, you can force the Mango update. Yes, you can. How are the 4G speeds on Metro's network compared to some of the main carriers? Let me see. Let me go back and check out my Samsung Galaxy Indulge review and see what the speeds were that I got in Dallas. Samsung Galaxy Indulge 4G review by Sydney. Okay, let's go to 4G. Hold on, I'm getting there. Okay, 4G. blah, blah, blah. On average, okay, these are the average 4G speeds that I got in Dallas with the Galaxy Indulge. The phone managed to pull data at 4 to 5 megabits per second, and upload speeds were about 3 to 4 megabits per second. Several times I reached peak speeds of 6 to 7 megabits per second for downloads. So average speeds for me were 4 to 5 megabits per second, but I do remember on several occasions getting 6 to 7 megabits per second for downloads. So that's pretty good. Is it awful to try to type on the tiny iPhone keyboard for you now that you're used to 4.3 inch? It is for me. You know, yeah, my phone, I switched to Windows Phone and it has a 4.3 inch display, and I just got the LG Esteem, which has a 3.2 inch display. So yeah, imagine that. I just got the LG Esteem last night. The phone is amazing. Will you be getting a review? Oh yeah. Did I call this the Esteem? It's the Enlighten. I'm sorry, the LG Enlighten. Yeah, I just talked about the Esteem. Okay, basically to repeat myself, we've asked the PR companies for a demo unit, but we haven't gotten one yet, so I'm not sure if we're going to get it. Did you see the iPhone 5 dummy on Engadget? Yeah, somebody made, like homemade, just made an iPhone 5. It actually looks pretty cool. The CDMA version of MetroPCS is called Simple Mobile. Actually, MetroPCS is a CDMA network, so. Oh, okay. Oh, I see, the stream is behind. Okay, Sydney, would you... okay. All right, Ustream, you do this to me every week. Every week you screw up. Okay. Texans or Cowboys? Cowboys, duh. What phones have quad-core processors? None yet. MetroPCS already is... Yeah, that's what I was saying. What do you think of the HTC Runnymede? Let me check out the spec sheet. HTC Runnymede, 4.7-inch Super LCD display, 1.5 gigahertz single-core processor, 8-megapixel camera, 720p video capture. It's a good phone. And it will also come with Beats headphones. So not a super phone maybe, but definitely an awesome phone. Plus you get those Beats headphones. Is rooting your phone well worth it? Should I root my Bionic? Yeah, I mean, if you're really into like hacking and modding and installing custom ROMs, then definitely, it takes time and research, and you have to be all into that. So if you're just like a basic user that, maybe just wants to customize your device a little bit, probably, is maybe a little too, time consuming for what you really care about. But yeah, it does, it adds a lot to your phone. You can check out, there's an article that we have on Phone Dog about the advantages of rooting your Android device. The Beats they offer are just branded Beats, but they are just an off-made version with a stamp pretty much. At least that's the rumor. Okay, will you explain MVNO carriers? I know what they are, but I want to know more. Maybe we'll save that for another time. Triple core, I don't know. There's no phones right now with a triple core processor either. I want a phone with 500 gigs of internal memory. Will there be one? Wow, I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay. What do you think of the HTC Titan? The Titan and the Radar were announced at about this, at the same day, the same event. The Titan is definitely the better of the two phones. It has a 4.7-inch Super LCD display, so like this ginormous display. I don't know, that might be too large for me. 1.5 gigahertz processor, 8-megapixel camera. I think a lot of people are saying, well, it doesn't have a dual-core processor. How is it supposed to compete? But honestly, Windows Phone doesn't need a dual-core processor. It just doesn't. I mean, honestly, it does not need a dual-core processor. 1.5. I mean, my phone has a 1 gigahertz. My phone has a last generation single-core 1 gigahertz processor, and it's fine. Like, it's super fast. So 1.5 gigahertz next generation should be plenty fast. Yeah, so I think the Titan's going to be a great phone. Virgin Mobile. Okay. That I didn't know. Will Phone Dog move offices to the Silicon Valley? I don't know. Will there be an Inspiron Duo 2? Do you think Windows Phone is about beating the iPhone or just another choice? It's just another choice. That's what I think. Do you, in your opinion, think that Android updates are only UI based and cleaning up code rather than actually optimizing it because of all the fragmentation? Well, I think, visual and cleaning up code, that's optimizing it. That's making it better. During Xbox Live games on your HD7, is there a sense of lag? No, I haven't noticed any. Do you plan on Congregate? No. Why don't Aaron let you review high-end phones? I'm the teen lifestyle editor, so I cover phones. I basically cover low-end phones, feature phones, low-end and mid-range Android devices. It just makes it easier to keep everything organized and to have, positions. Besides, Aaron is he's much more knowledgeable than I am, so he's better qualified to review the high-end phones. One or core or processor. Okay. Let's see, did I miss one? On Live is better than Xbox Live on Windows Phone 7. Call-L supposedly has a secret 5th core. Interesting. Sydney, what's your gamer tag? And women phones like the rhyme. That's a really random comment. Sydney, who do you think should be president in 2012? Don't choose Michelle Bachmann. I don't really get into all of that. What's the difference between single core processor and a dual core? I've been asked this so many times, and it's so funny because to me it seems not to hopefully this doesn't come as insulting, but to me it seems like so obvious. Single core, you have one core, one processor. Dual core, you have 2 cores, basically 2 processors. Not really, but it's basically 2 cores. And so it's going to be faster. Instead of having just one single core doing all of the work and processing everything, you now have 2 doing that same amount of work. So everything's going to be a lot faster. Would you rather see better specs on phones processor-wise, or would you rather camera and screen? I'm really a sucker for high-res displays. I say that probably every broadcast because somebody asks me about it every time. But that between a processor, for me, I'd rather have a better processor. Should I hold out on the Dell Venue Pro? I currently have the HTC Desire. Should I hold out on it? Yeah, if that's what you want to go with, the Venue Pro is a good option. You may, there's probably better phones coming out for the holiday season that will be better than the Venue Pro, but, Bionic, okay, wait, let me check Facebook. I just realized I haven't checked. Okay, last comment is from 41 minutes ago, so I'm waiting for it to refresh, but no more. Okay, back to Ustream. Sydney, will you be going to the Samsung and Google event? No, I won't. I think it would be great if you could control your electronics with your brain. Do you, Sydney? Sure. Yeah, I think that would be cool. Please stop asking that. Okay. I don't know what they're asking. By the way, this is my first Phone Dog broadcast. I like the fact that it is one-on-one, sort of, and you take the time to read the comments. Much love from Florida. Cool. Hey. Hi from Texas. Yeah, we do an open Q&A the last 15 minutes of every broadcast. So the show used to be an hour of just open Q&A, but it was just too much for my brain to process. So it was like question after question after question, and at the end of it, I was like, oh my gosh. So we shortened it to 15 minutes, and then we also discuss the news. Do you own any tablets? You should go talk to Aaron. Glad you're enjoying it. Florida, love that place. On single core versus dual core, look at it as if it were a road. Good explanation. It's awesome there. Better than is MI Michigan weather. Do you know when, if MetroPCS 4G coverage will be expanded? They announce new markets every couple of months, so I don't have any news on when they will again, but I'm sure, they're working on it right now. Why do you think no company has rivaled the iPod? Probably just the same, reason why no one's really made a tablet that can compete with the iPad. To me, I think it has a lot to do with price. And what the iPod is, in order to make a device that does exactly the same thing as the iPod, it's going to be the same price. And it goes back to what I said earlier. The average consumer walks into a store and you see two products, one by Apple, one by, you know, whoever else, and they're both the same price. They're going to get the Apple product. So that's why. That comment should be in the dog pound. What was it? Which comment? Isn't Aaron in North Carolina? Yes, he is. What do you think Windows Phone have over the iPhone doesn't besides visual effects? Oh, that the iPhone doesn't have multitasking. Let me think. What does it have that the iPhone doesn't have? I think the UI is better. That's personal. That's personal opinion. You know, Windows Phone versus Android versus iOS, it's all just personal preference. I think they're all three equally as awesome. And I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but I honestly mean that. I think they're equally as awesome. It just depends on what you want. So it's 5 o'clock, which means it's time for me to go bye-bye. And that was dumb. Okay. I'll see you guys next week, same time, same place, 5 p.m. Eastern time. If I missed a question, you can send me a message on Twitter. My screen name is It's My Job to Know, and I'll try to answer it if I can. If you're watching the recording of this on YouTube, leave a comment. I'll be reading those, and I may respond to some of them. We'll also post the show notes for this on phonedog.com. And I think that's it. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.